The following story contains sensitive topics. Listener discretion is advised. The Bunny Rabbit by Daniel Morris, previously written in 1999. Act 1, Scene 1. A room in David's house. By mere definition, she was the epitome of innocence. There she sat, maybe a step above the angels, for even they were charged with folly, surrounded by modern Gomorrah. Corruption flew from hasty lips to eager ears around her, above her, but no ungodliness could penetrate her soul. "You ready?" Chastity asked. He was so absorbed in his writing that he barely noticed her presence in the room, let alone the house. She lived next door with her roommate. His roommate, her boyfriend, might have let her in, or maybe the door was just open. Their living situation on the outskirts of campus was pretty lax. It was 6:25. Class started at 6:30. It took a lot for Chastity to rush someone, but she didn't want to be late for visual psychology, not visual psychology. It was odd. She caught him just as he finished a thought. Normally, an interruption would have been just that, an interruption. He mentally ticked another check mark on his list of ways that Chastity is perfect. "Man, why didn't you come and get me earlier, little most unlikely to succeed? I didn't want to bother you." "You rather I be late?" Chastity smiled. "Is that the short story you're writing about me?" "It's not about you, little egocentric. I'm just using you for inspiration." "Can I read it?" "I'm using you." Ha! Get it? Using? No, you can't read it. You know what time it is? "I know, but we're already late." David huffed. "Man, go ahead." She blessed the air she walked through and graced the seat. Oh, how he yearned to be that chair. In many ways he was, though, an inanimate object, overlooked. "What party was this?" the bunny rabbit questioned. "I made it up, little unreal reality." Dave laughed. "I am on it today." "You know, Dave, I'm really not that innocent," she said, rising from the chair. "I know, little devil made me do it," he replied as they walked downstairs. "It's a fictional story." Act 1, Scene 2. Visual psychology. In class, everyone chatted as they drew in their journals. It should be stated that this was no ordinary college. The students attended an art school, so one might view their day-to-day projects as non-traditional, to say the least. "What you working on, little unartistic?" It was Jay. He was the third musketeer of three musketeers with three black art students in a mostly white art school. He looked over his shoulder to see what she was drawing. It was a bunny rabbit with the horns of a devil grazing on a field with the sun on the horizon. "This psychology class ain't helping, is it?" He looked over at Dave. "Was lo. He was stuck in a loop. The three bursted out in laughter. "Okay, settle down," the teacher said. Sergeant McPherson was an ex-Marine who just happened to be an artist. He was such a badass that the other teachers called him Sergeant. Dave, wearing a look that said, "I told you so," showed the trio his entry, an homage to the Last Supper with himself, Jay, and Chastity in the center, framed by crosshairs. Chastity nodded, feeling the weight of being one of the three African-American students in the class and about 15 in the entire school. She didn't seek special treatment. She craved invisibility among the sea of nameless faces. "Okay, kids, pass in your journals," Sergeant McPherson ordered. "As you know, next Tuesday is your final, and it's worth a third of your grade. Cheap packets will be printed by tomorrow. The first part is multiple choice, and the second part is an as such mercy for such a hard ass," Dave thought as he looked over at his crush. She half listened as the professor concluded his session. Nothing, he said, could possibly augment her soul, therefore it was irrelevant. "Now, don't wait until the last minute." And that's it. Class dismissed. As laughter filled the room, Chastity locked eyes with the professor. "Come on, little slow, don't poke me or you'll get me pregnant," Dave quipped. "That was stupid," Jay said. "No, you know what? You're stupid," Jay corrected himself. "No, never mind. You know what? I can't even call you stupid because then that will be insulting stupidity itself," Jay confirmed. As they began to leave, Chastity felt eyes on her. She lowered her head and glanced over at the teacher who was organizing journals. It must have all been in her head. But as she followed the boys out, the sensation returned.
Act 2, Scene 1. That room in David's house.
Her soul was torn, half subsiding and half silently yearning for justice. She felt like King David asking, how long will the wicked prevail? And thus this was life. Boys are born bad, while girls are born good, and men inherit the earth because of this. Is it really fallacious then to break the laws in order to explore? Why, if this makes one superior? Maybe King Solomon contemplated the same question. You ready? Chastity asked. Her timing was impeccable. Dave made the mistake of looking up. There she stood in a form-fitting blue sequins dress and matching purse. It accented every curve and complemented every arch. A heavenly body which made men yearn to sin. He lipped the words damn, and then snapping back into his humorous default. Yeah, I'm ready, little impatient. You told me I should interrupt you if we were running late. Thanks for reading that back to me, little stenographer. He honestly had forgotten the school's formal was today. Maybe subconsciously this was on purpose. They went to an art school. What fun would it be? The only reason she was going was to make a cameo with Dave's roommate, her boyfriend. She wanted the rest of the girls at the school to see them together. So I'ma drop you off at class and then you'll come to the homecoming afterwards? Yeah. Geez, do you want me to pick you up too? Or can your boyfriend do one thing for you? They smiled at each other. What class you got? African art history. African? Yep. Art? Yep. History? Yep. African art history. With who? Sergeant McPherson. African art history with Sergeant McPherson. Yep. White Sergeant McPherson teaches Black African art history, a night class, as well as visual psychology in the day. She laughed. I did not know that, he said. You better be careful. I think he likes you. Act 2, Scene 2. The school. Get out. Dave said this before stopping the car. I'll be in the game room if you need anything. Okay, thanks, Dave. Whatever, go get out. She stepped to the curb and her high heel hit the concrete with a wobble. As her ankle bent, David reached for her reactively. You okay? Dave said sincerely. Yeah, she laughed, slightly embarrassed. Be careful before you kill yourself with those things. Act 2, Scene 3. Black African Art History. After class, Chastity was walking out when she got that sensation again, like she was being watched. This time, she was almost certain of it. It didn't matter though. In a few steps, she'd be out. Miss Williams, can I have a moment of your time? She turned. You missed your last presentation. Yeah, I know. I couldn't get a ride. You said that there was an extra credit, like makeup day near the end of the semester? That's correct. It's coming up pretty soon. When is it? It's on your syllabus. She glanced down at her dress as if pockets might suddenly appear. Have it on me. His eyes followed her motion but lingered for a second before meeting hers again. I think I have an extra one here. Do you have a moment? I don't. I actually have to go. He ignored her and opened his file cabinet. She glanced at the clock. Act 2, Scene 4. Outside of the game room. Jay looked at the back of his wrist as if a watch was there. No, I'm late for the formal. The two laughed. Who actually goes to those things? Little Miss Black Barbie is gone, Dave said. You ain't going with her, little ugly nobody loves me? Jay asked with a smile that preceded a chuckle. Nah, she's going with her boyfriend. Really? Yeah. That's wild, Jay stated. The good girls always go for the bad boys. Dave smiled as he looked through his car's window. On the passenger side was Chastity's purse. Look what little Miss Forget-Me-Not left. What time is it? Jay looked at the back of his wrist again as Dave opened the car door. Act 2, Scene 5. The classroom. Sergeant McPherson finally found what he was looking for. Here you go. She had tried to be polite, but no more. She snatched the syllabus and stood up to leave. She had one hand on the door when he said, Chastity. She turned, half irritated and half unnerved by the way he used her first name, Sounded so creepy coming from him. Did you ever get that cheat packet for the psychology final? At this point, she was just ready to leave, but unfortunately, she needed that cheat packet more than she even needed the syllabus. She didn't even really need the syllabus. She could have found it when she got home, but she did need that cheat packet. She would definitely fail the test without it. He pulled it out of one of his drawers, leaned over his desk, and dropped it on top. As she walked to fetch it, he moved past her. Why didn't he just hand it to her? Where was he going? Was he leaving? And why did she still feel his breath on her neck? She realized he had been too close for comfort. Then she heard a click as the door locked. Act 3, Scene 1, Dave's car. You should carry this purse over for me, Dave said. How about I don't and say I did? What should I do? I don't know, little miss. I don't want nobody to know that I carry purses on a weekend when nobody's looking. That was a long one, Dave said, spotting a shopping bag on the floor of his car. I know. He slipped the purse in the bag and held it up to a streetlight to inspect. You're still carrying a purse, Jay said. Act 3, Scene 2, the classroom again. We, all of us, are insane. Our baser instincts have been subdued by a new form of civility. Sergeant McPherson said this unprompted as he stepped toward Chastity. She stared into his eyes, confused, wondering why this man had suddenly lost his damn mind. Our baser instincts have been subdued by a new form of civility. Why does he keep saying that? Where was it from? Was it from class? Was she supposed to know this? And if it was from class, which class was it from? Psychology? History? These nervous thoughts began to swirl, overtaking her confusion. But what is civility? He asked, walking slowly toward her. It's defined as formal politeness and courtesy in behavior. It's political correctness. It's a lie, a facade. It's not us. She froze as the teacher delivered his new unorthodox lesson. She wasn't just nervous. She was worried. We, all of us, are insane. We're not insane because we would murder if there were no law. We're not insane because we teach gym mixed with physical education and health, yet we don't teach a class on how to raise children. We are insane because we disrespect nature by going against what we are programmed to do. We are the only animal that can starve itself. We are the only animal that can commit suicide. We are the only animal that will put procreation on hold for education. To say the whole situation was distracting would be an understatement. Maybe that's why she didn't realize how close he had come to her. Chastity was now scared. She glanced at the back door. He had only locked the one at the front of the class. The other might still be unlocked. Sergeant McPherson looked down at Chastity, warm air from his nostrils enveloping her face. Do you know that women have orgasms during rape? She exploded toward the door, but he turned and pushed, redirecting her momentum toward the wall. She tried to self-correct, hitting a student's desk and grabbing onto it, her knees slamming to the ground. He seized her, digging his thumbs into her collarbones and his fingers into her neck and shoulders with crippling force. She was flung onto his desk and his massive arms wrapped around her biceps and triceps. Her arms and fists tightened and writhed as she tried desperately to escape from his grasp. Alarm mixed with her fear to create terror. Chastity kept fighting as the teacher pressed his heavy body against hers. She bent her wrist at an awkward angle and reached for his side, digging her nails into his skin. He let out a bellow, and she felt her arm slip free from his grasp for a fleeting moment. A white flash pierced her vision as a powerful blow sent her head spinning in another direction. She opened her eyes, feeling the warmth of pain radiating from her cheek. His hands gripped her wrist, leaving her almost breathless. His undeserved manliness hardened against her inner thigh, disgust mixed with her terror. The more she attempted to free herself, the harder he pressed against her. He was like a constrictor squeezing around her. His stomach was smashed against hers, his protruding, hers collapsing, exhaust mixed with her disgust. Feeling her strength wane, the devilish man lifted her form-fitting sequenced dress. He kept his chest pressed hard against hers and pushed her panties to the side. With one hand, he undid his pants while gripping both of her forearms with the other. He inserted his fingers into her, targeting that which he intended to defile. Panic flooded her as the horrifying realization struck. She was about to be raped. Adrenaline surged through her veins, mixing with panic as she resolved that she would not let this happen. As he released her momentarily to position himself, a fierce anger extinguished every other emotion in her soul. It energized her, sending a surge of strength down to her leg, which she used to drive a rapid knee into his groin. Disabled by the blow, she pushed him off, summoning every ounce of strength to fight back, throwing punches at his face with all of her might. She spun and grabbed one of the students' desks, too heavy to lift under normal circumstances, but she swung it with every bit of force she could muster toward his upper body. The impact was so powerful that he was lifted off of the ground and slammed back into it. Breathless, she felt her energy drain, but she was still breathing. She could hardly stand, but she was still standing. And she was still angry. Sergeant McPherson only locked the one door because he had been teaching African American art in this class for a semester. In the class he was accustomed to teaching, psychology, there was only one door. He always forgot this room had two. The door at the back of the class is the one that Jay and Dave entered. The most innocent person in the world walked around the most demon-like. She stood near his head and locked eyes with him, seeing everything impure and hideous in life. He looked up at her with a shameful, apologetic stare. She looked back through him with a cold, unforgiving gaze. She lifted her leg, giving the corrupted one last look at what he tried to defile. Her high heel stomped into his cornea, through his retina, embedding itself into his pituitary gland in less than a second. The evil blood that pulsates through every living being on earth squirted onto her skin. It melted into her pores and dissolved into her bloodstream, claiming its last victim.